That's it there. Okay, so if you wanted to read all about it. Okay, the Edelbrock produces 6 psi and it doesn't need a fuel pressure regulator. So let's turn it over. That has to be clocked so that the you can move the bottom part around to line up with your fuel lines. So that's it there for the other side. Just trying to get that to focus. So that's what I'm using. I'm thinking probably should loosen them all off. Probably leaving one in isn't the best idea, but anyway. Okay, so that's what we're looking at on the inside. Okay. And there's the diaphragm. It's a fairly big diaphragm. I can't really see any that there would be too much difference between that and the stock standard one, to be honest. Okay. Keep focusing that. It will press in and out. Okay. So I think that I'll work out whether it's got to be there or there in a sec. So looking behind the diaphragm, I just see a spring down in there and a metal shaft, you could call it. Okay, so it says before fully tightening these screws, the rocker arm must be actuated to and held in the full stroke position. Every second hole has a thread in it, so this doesn't have a thread. This does, this doesn't, and this does. Well, where I need it positioned, there's no thread there, so it can only really be there or there. So let's see, there, all the way around there. That's not going to work because my metal line won't line up. Yeah, so that's the two positions I've got to choose from. Is there, that's too far forward this way, and the next one is there, and it's too far forward this way. I mean, honestly, would it really not, can't they just have a hole in every one instead of every second one and just put a thread in every single hole underneath? I can rotate this. No, I can't. Okay. Okay, I've done a bit of research and apparently you can turn this diaphragm. So I see now that you can. I'm just pushing it down as I turn it. So I turn it and then I'm pushing it down and something seems to be moving on the mechanical side of it. Okay, that's it. It now lines up with the other hole. However, now I do have to put a thread or tap the every second hole. Just like to make the point that it's better. This type of work is better off done in the factory, not in people's garages. You know, you do generate a lot of metal filings or aluminium. That can get down in there in the bowl, and you know, that's not good. It's got to be flushed out. From my addiction to these old 1970s vehicles, I do hoard tools. I'll see them and I'll buy them. And I need 10 by 32 NF, but that's definitely going to be something I've got to go to the shop for. One thing I noticed is that this 10mm thread is very similar to the, I think it's 3/8. I'll demonstrate that. Okay, so we've got the advertised as 3/8 fuel connection. We'll call that either the wrong thread or a crush thread. And this is the 10mm. I got it at a hardware shop, and you can see that it's fairly similar, or it's possibly a better match. So that goes in about 4 mil, say. I didn't show on camera that. 1, 2, and 3. And the other one we've got, let's get it started. But so 1, 2, and 3. Yep. However, the threads, they don't match, right? Somehow I might be able to refocus that, get a bit sharper definition there. The thing about holding this in a vise is there's no way to really keep it in the vise. You know, that's round there. You say, well, I'll clamp it here, but then you've got this bit sticking out, and that's sticking out on a different angle. It's very hard without tightening it up too much and damaging it. So I'm thinking possibly the best thing to do is try and grab the spring down there and just try and ease it out like that. Okay, so my screws will pass through the bottom, but the top, it's not wide enough, so I have to make those wider. Now I realise you are supposed to tap these holes, but with where I live, with what I have at my disposal, it'd take a month of Sundays to get the right tap or die for this work. Okay, this is labelled as an M5, and that passes through a 4.5mm hole pretty well perfectly. I beg your pardon, it's a 5mm drill bit, and that's the right size. Okay, I've got this other type of nuts and bolts. I'm going to use this type of nut because it doesn't have a nylon lock washer on it. So hopefully it won't spin, and I'll be able to torque up the... Okay, so the torque spec for these nuts are 25 to 30 inch pounds. But these baggage weighing scales, they don't do inch pounds, they only do foot pounds. So 25 to 30 inch pounds, that equates to 2.5 foot pounds. And the torque wrench is at 2.5 foot pounds, and that's very little. So you are supposed to pull straight. So I'll just place that around that ridge there of the handle, and we'll try and get a reading there. Okay, we'll try that again when it's on level. Set it back to 0 and so it's very close. It was on 2.5 before. Okay, we'll try it with the other one. Just set it back to 0, which it won't. It'll do it. Okay. Okay, so that's close enough for me. So we'll just find out how much that is. So that is, it's not much pressure at all. It's now a couple of weeks since I've done the clocking work for this fuel pump. Some of these spark plug sockets have got a rubber bit in the bottom, and the end can slip into that rubber like so, and it'll hold better. But what I wanted to say was you can get these ratchet straps, and you could come over the top there, put both sides onto a nail, and tighten it down. So that's really quite sturdy in that that rubber bit down the bottom there. But sticking to the point, another thing you could do would be to again put 2 nails on either side and come down with a well, I think they're all started. Now, it's a tricky bit. I have to swap it over. To change position. Becoming quite heavy. Okay. Crisscross pattern. Okay. Oh, it's heavy. And this one. Okay, I think they're done. I can't hold it any longer. I think that's it. Okay. Okay, there it is. I did actually undo the bolts, believe it or not, and and do it a second time. I think the first time was good though, and you'll see that when it's bottomed out, the surprisingly the diaphragm sticks out further, so that's how you would know if it's been clocked. It's sticking out more at the front. They've had a bit of time to settle on the diaphragm. Yeah, it's surprising. They were torqued up, then they've backed off, so you might want to let it rest around for a day and then re-torque them, I suppose. I was doing up the nut, but I found that if you just jammed your fingernail up against them, or I did get a spanner once and just hold it in place while I tightened this up, and then it was fine. They do say not to tighten them up too much or you can damage the diaphragm. I suppose that does make sense. I've noticed that the fuel pump won't torque down a third time, so it's only that second time, so you'll see very nearly done. Just got to get the spring back in. There's a nib there underneath inside the arm there, and I'll put the damage out so can be seen just from the removal. It's no big deal. So now what I think I'll do is I'll just get a screwdriver up underneath there. I do have glasses on. I'm going to try and somehow push that in up over the underneath one there. Okay, so I've managed to push that in over the other nib now, and that's in place. Went very far, so I've never used this stuff before, so I'm just going to apply a little bit around the edge. Okay, so it's back from the very edge, and I'll just thread it in. Make sure it goes in the right hole. That's got to be my exit. That's the right one there. So it's got a nice bead around the edge there. I won't tighten it up too much. I just sort of like, I'll seat it. Okay, that's a really good seat just there. Okay, this is the other sort. Okay, that thread had been tightened. Let's have a look and see if the thread sealant has gone off. No, it's still in its liquid form. Okay. Let's have a look and see if it's gone hard around the threads. I don't think it's gone hard somehow. It's turning exceptionally easy. Okay, this thread grease will dissolve with acetone, to a lesser degree with methylated spirits, and to a lesser degree again with fuel that you put in your car. Okay, it wants to be back from the edge because you don't want any of it getting inside the plumbing on this one, that's for sure.